Welcome back into Exit 99 Sports. As always, my name is Caleb Deloach, and had some really, really great start to the season. It comes to baseball, track and field. A lot of athletes here in our little coverage area, Cape Jackson areas, are performing at a really, really high level. So that's what we're going to kind of jump in, start talking about this past week's action. Baseball, a lot of baseball, a little bit track and field, things like that. Then we're going to talk about what is coming on or what's going on this week, what all we have to look forward to, kind of my thoughts about that. And then, mention at the end some wrap up still of basketball, some awards and things like that got announced. So congratulate a couple of kids here in our area. But first off, I will start with this past week, all the way back Monday, the 23rd. I think I might have mentioned it at somewhere in the last episode. The game was going on whenever I was talking to you guys, like as I was recording it on Monday. And that was Jackson went back up to SLU kind of as a conclusion for their early season St. Charles West tournament they were playing in. And the Indians went up there, knocked off the Junior Bills 8-7. Good win. SLU, part of the Metro Catholic Conference, always very, very tough group. I mean, Jackson's going to see some more of those teams. I believe they got CBC, DeSmet on the schedule. I know Vianney is in the district now. All right, good luck. But that's a good start to the year. I think Matt Carter had the game winner there. He went 4 for 4 in the game with 3 RBIs. So very, very good game there for him. And yeah, the Indians staying perfect here. We'll get to another game they had later in the week. But Jackson starting off really, really hot this season. Speaking of playing well, especially to start the year, Notre Dame, they took on Portageville, which I believe I talked about this game briefly, and the fact that Portageville is a good team. You know, they've had some really, really good, successful seasons the last couple of years. They're going to I thought they would make life kind of difficult for the Bulldogs, for Notre Dame Bulldogs. But Notre Dame knocked them off 12-2. Really good win, in my opinion, there against one of the better small schools here in the area. I guess you got to shout out who played well in the ball game. Lawson hit the ball really, really well. 3 hits, 3 RBIs. So, yeah, Notre Dame playing well. They went up at a road trip up to St. Louis area, over to Union, I believe, and things got a little sideways there, but I'll talk about that in a moment. Then they also knocked off Fredericktown the next day, 17-2. Very winnable game and a nice game to kind of get some guys through the lineup there and kind of run over a little undermanned Fredericktown team. And then another very good small school in the area, Scott City, a team that's looking to make a state run this year. They bring back some good talent. They're a very, very loaded, smaller school team. They took on Saxony. They beat Saxony 9-2. I didn't write it down. Now, kind of going off the top of my head, I watched that game a little bit. Saxony played well for a long stretch. They held the offense down for Scott City for a long stretch of the game. I think it was about maybe the 5th or so inning. Scott City got hot and kind of ran away, pulled away from Saxony there. But Saxony, though, very good start to the season. They come back the next day on Wednesday of the 25th and blow out Meadow Heights 18-8. Some very good hitting in that ball game, putting up a ton of runs. It was kind of the Saxony way, I want to say even last season. I feel like all their games, it was like they lose or they win like 20-7. Like they're a part of some crazy high scoring games. So if that's the case again this year, it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch and keep track of. Then complete opposite of 18-8. Cape Central took on Farmington, a very solid Farmington program traditionally, beat them 1-0, the epitome of a pitcher's duel. And luckily for Cape Central, when it comes to pitcher's duels, they get to throw Chapman Ogles out there. Chapman had an unbelievable game, 13 strikeouts, no walks, gave up 4 hits, obviously no runs in the ball game, coming up with that 1-0 win. Great job there by Chapman, taking care of business. And then Jackson the next day, Thursday, March 26th, they took on Sykeston, a Sykeston program that has had success in the past. Maybe not there right now, but they blew by the Bulldogs 13-2, picking up a SEMO Conference victory. It's going to be interesting to see how the SEMO Conference kind of shakes out. Some teams playing well here early, but they haven't really got as many crossover games against each other. So we got a lot of time until they start, getting the heart of conference season, and then we get into the conference tournament, things like that. We got a long way until then. I believe that's in May. So we got some time between now and then to get these teams kind of rolling. And then I mentioned it, Notre Dame, they went and played in the Bank Classic there in Union, Missouri. Played 3 different teams, got beat pretty good by Borgia, 14-1. Lost a closer one to North Point, 14-1. So the Bats just a little bit cold there early on in that tournament. And they kind of turned things around. They played 2 games against Lafayette High School out of St. Joseph and beat them 4-0 and 5-4 in those 2 matchups against Lafayette. So good way to end the weekend. You played a couple of solid squads there. Borgia and North Point came up a little short, but turned it around, beat a Lafayette team that you probably should beat. So they did a good job taking care of business. Cape Central, that's another team that had quite a road trip this past weekend. The Tigers, they went over to McCracken County High School, I think it was. They played over in Paducah. And shout out to Ryan Winkler, my guy. He was broadcasting all the games, live streaming them there on YouTube. Cape Central Sports, if you ever want to watch Cape Central Baseball, check it out on YouTube, Cape Central Sports. Ryan, always on the call there. I watched him. They had a late ball game Friday night. Cape Central blew out Massac County 10-1. Very good start there. Cold ball game for the Tigers. Also that night, Saxony took on Leopold. I mentioned they put up runs. They put some runs on the board, and they beat Leopold 10-2. The next afternoon, Saturday, March 28th, Cape Central then took on the host, McCracken County. Different kind of animal there. McCracken beat them 10-1. Kind of send the Tigers back home with, I believe, that's their first loss on the season. So overall, very solid start to the season for our local teams here when it comes to baseball. Jackson, I said, is undefeated, and they played a couple decent squads. They've gone up to St. Louis and played quite a few games. They're 5-0. Big wins in 4 out of the 5 games. They have a few ball games. They have several ball games going on this week. I'll talk about here in a minute. But a good start to the year for them. They lost a lot from last season, but they have, several really talented kids back this year. Adler Flynn, Drew Parsons, the SEMO commit. I think Flynn's committed. Oh, now I can't remember. I don't want to say I think Wren Lake. I think he's committed to Wren Lake. They bring back quite a bit. So they should have a decent squad, but a nice start early on. Notre Dame, similarly, good start. They're 6-3, dropped a couple of games this past weekend up there in Union, but overall, really good start for the Bulldogs. They're another team. They brought back a couple of guys who were, expected to kind of carry a lot of what they do, but, who are the pieces going to fill in around them? And so far, they've shown signs here that they can be a pretty good ball club, especially as the year marches on. We're just now at the very end of March, so we've got a lot of time left for these kids to start gelling a little bit, so a good start for them, and then also a good start for Cape Central. The Tigers 4-1 on the year. That one loss I just mentioned at McCracken County so far. Long way from home there in McCracken County school, an area that's pretty darn good at baseball and a lot of other athletics. So Cape has a good start to the season, beat some local teams, Farmington, Charleston, St. Pius, a nice win there. And then they have a few more somewhat local games going on this week against some more familiar opponents as well before they get out of area a little bit in the middle of April. And then Saxony, once again, I mentioned it as well. They dropped that game to Scott City this past week, 9-2. But Scott City's going to be one of, if not the very best small school teams here in the area, in all of Southeast Missouri, that is, this year. But good start, 3-1. They don't have a very busy week this week, but then middle of April throughout the rest of the season, the ball games really pick up. They start playing a ton of games here as we get into mid-April. So baseball getting rolling, hot and heavy in baseball season here. And then girls soccer, I'm going to go to next. We haven't had many ball games to this point, so teams kind of getting rolling, getting the ball going downhill here. A busy week, a little bit of an unfortunate week here for the Cape Central Tigers. They took on, if you go up to Perryville, part of Southeast Missouri, and one of the very best teams in all of Southeast Missouri, in St. Vincent. St. Vincent beat Cape Central 8-0. St. Vincent is talented. They bring back Lana Adams, who's the best individual player in the region. She's going to Mizzou. They lost in the state title game last year. So St. Vincent, anytime they come down to this area or play anybody from this area, going to be a tough ball game. Going to be a good contest. So that was Tuesday. Jump to Thursday. Notre Dame had a couple of games against Parkway schools. First, they took on Parkway South, lost that ball game 2-1. Close game. I saw Luke Randall posted a highlight from the game where they said what I assumed was a goal was not a goal. Ball did not cross the line allegedly. So Notre Dame maybe a little screwed out of that one here early in the season, but it's early. So they dropped to Parkway South 2-1. And then that Thursday as well, a couple of days after getting beat by St. Vincent, the Tigers of Cape Central lose to Poplar Bluff, SEMO Conference game in double overtime. Brutal loss there. Long ball game for the Tigers, but they have a little bit of a break in between games. But tough break there, losing to Poplar Bluff 3-2, kind of a good rivalry between area schools, things like that. And then Saxony, they get on the board here this week, but it is an L. They take on Carterville, lose that 2-1. Carterville over there, Southern Illinois. And then finally, the Jackson Indians play their first game of the season. It was this past Friday, the 27th. They did not play the entire first week. Everybody else got started. They went up to St. Louis, took on Visitation Academy, I believe an all-girls private school up there. They beat Visitation 4-0 on Friday. And then they played again Saturday really early in the morning, 10 a.m. I think was the kickoff at Fort Zumwalt East. So a little bit of a drive from where, I don't know where they stayed at up there, but Visitation over to Fort Zumwalt East. And they lost that one 2-0. It was 1-0 most all ball game. And, Jackson was really pressing, and then Fort Zumwalt East got a counterattack goal late there. So they blanked the Indians 2-0, give Jackson their first loss of the season, obviously, and only their second game of the year. So all these teams in the area right now don't have a lot of games under their belt. It's really, really early in the season. So we'll see how they look as we get, more involved here. They start playing some more area teams, kind of get used to what you're seeing, SEMO Conference, things like that. We have a matchup between local teams going on this upcoming week. So there'll be some games to watch. A lot of opportunity, especially as the weather gets a little bit warmer here, to get out there, go watch some good soccer here. But I mentioned it, St. Vincent, right? Or not St. Vincent. Saxony sitting at 1-1. Jackson also going 1-1 on the weekend, their first two ball games of the season. Notre Dame 0-2, dropped both those games to the Parkway schools. But both, not bad losses. Parkway schools are both pretty solid, pretty consistently good programs up there in suburban St. Louis. And then Cape Central also 0-2, like I mentioned, losing to St. Vincent and Poplar Bluff. So tough start for them, but they have some chances here in the near future to kind of get on the board and start picking up some W's. They're going to be very busy as well, especially mid to late April. So the Tigers have a chance to really turn their season around, start going the right direction, heading in to the postseason. So that's all the girls soccer from this past week. Now I want to jump into what I'm going to be very long and wordy and whatnot about here, which is the track meets we had going on this past week. I know we had a couple local teams went over to Poplar Bluff. Poplar Bluff hosted an open meet of sorts there. It's kind of labeled Poplar Bluff Tri-Meet. Some people label it the SEMO North Open. So we had a lot of some local flavor over there. Cape Jackson made their way over there to Poplar Bluff and had a few decent performances here. I'm going to read you some of the ones that stood out. Not get super deep in the weeds. I was not there, so I don't have maybe the same high energy I did about the first game or the first track meet there at Notre Dame. But some really, really good showings by a handful of kids in the 100 meters. First kid that stood out for me, Ryan Larry. Ryan Larry, a good athlete, kid who is a really, really good jumper. Went to state this past year in the high jump, and early at Notre Dame, jumped a personal record, a PR there over at Notre Dame, 6 feet 4 1/4, so or 4 3/4, I believe. So big time jump here early in the season, and Larry is a kid that the coaches over there at Jackson want to work in a little more in the sprints. Kid's got good speed, obviously, and he stood out because he ran an 11.38 in the 100. So nice first 100 of the season for him. And then maybe the big one that stood out for me, as he does most of the time he gets on the track, Barrett Reagan. Barrett Reagan ran his first 400 of the year, went 47.95. That matched his personal best from this past season. I believe he went 47.95 in the state finals. And so matching that already first season, or first meet of the season, really, really good start for Barrett. He put up a pretty big number later in the week. I'll get to in just a second. A couple other boys standouts for me. Jamie Adams, or just one more boy. Jamie Adams in shot put and disc. Jamie Adams, a freshman over for Cape Central, threw like a beast over there at Poplar Bluff, man. 48 feet, 4.75 inches in the shot. And then the discus, he threw 150 feet, 8 inches. I'll be able to read one day. 150 feet, 8 inches. So, I mean, as a freshman, popping off like that, incredible. Got first place in both of those disciplines. So, a really, really hot start for him. A guy who immediately puts himself in the, we got to watch what this kid's doing. He could be putting himself in the state meet here by the end of this season. Wouldn't shock me. Especially because, those who don't know, Cape Central had been in Class 5 in track the last few years. They dropped down this year to Class 4. So, I mean, some of these kids, a lot of their kids are, that maybe got to the finals, maybe didn't make the finals, but made the state meet, or maybe got knocked out right before state, something like that. A lot of these kids have an opportunity to be on the medal stand this year, because dropping down to Class 4, I'm expecting, health notwithstanding, some big time showings for Cape Central by the end of the year. So stay tuned for that. We got a while, obviously, but I'm really high on a lot of what Cape Central can do in the postseason. So over on the girls' side, a girl who really stood out to me in the sprints, in the 200 and the 400, she won both. Beckley Getz from Jackson. Beckley, not somebody I remember watching much last year. One of her coaches said she ran really well in the spring, in the indoor season, things like that. So, I was like, hey, what you going to do? She won the 200, ran 26:44. So nice time there for her. And then the 400, ran 101 in the 400. So a really, really good start to the season. Whenever, around here, even especially if you get girls that are touching right there at 60 seconds or getting below that, you have a legit chance to push yourself into the state meet. So, shout out to Beckley. Really good start to the season for her running. She looked good at Notre Dame. She ran the 100 there. I can't remember the time exactly. I want to say 12:06, something like that. So she had a really good start to the season, and I'm interested to see, she can keep building on throughout the year. In the hurdles, a couple of girls, one from Jackson, one from Cape, Bella Ivy, in the 100 hurdles, ran 17:71, which she PR'd by nearly a second is what I wrote down here. I'm not looking at it right now. I'm not looking at the stats right now, but based on what they have on athletic.net, it's kind of where I get all my stats and all the results from. Big PR for her. She looked really good early in the season hurdling. And then Lily Williams from Cape Central, 17:81, just a split second behind Ivy. Williams looked good there in the hurdles as well. Somebody that has a lot of experience, hurdled a lot last season, so expecting her to close the year well. Also, another freshman for the Tigers, Caden Kern. I mentioned Jamie Adams throwing really well. Caden Kern looked really great in the jumps early in the season. In the high jump, she won with 5 feet 1 3/4 inches, so big early jump for her as only a ninth grader. She also won the triple jump in 32 feet 9.5 inches. So Caden Kern looks like the real deal, man. She's a great multi-sport athlete. I think I mentioned the last show, starter in basketball, starter in volleyball, and one of the very, very best on the track team already. So I'm excited for what her future holds in every sport she plays at high school. So Caden Kern, one of the young names to watch there for the Tigers. Then in pole vault, kind of the name to watch all season for me, Amelia Fox. Amelia went to the state meet last year. I want to say she finished 5th. I could be making that up. But she went to state last year. Looked strong here early on. Jumped 11 feet in the pole vault there at Poplar Bluff. So good start for her. And then Brooklyn Williams, a very strong early number for her in the long jump. Jumped 17 feet 7 inches. And I put down here that she won the meet by the next closest jumper was 3 feet behind her. So Brooklyn dominated. Brooklyn's another, girl for Jackson who kind of does a little bit of everything. You'll see her in the jumps, see her in the sprints. She'll do relays, things like that. We're just a great all-around athlete, and really, really good start to the season. Then Cape, Jackson, Notre Dame, and Saxony all sent runners up to Festus. Festus holds the McCullough Douglas Invitational every year. It's a big-time meet, and there's a lot of really, really good athletes from, not just Eastern Missouri, not just like St. Louis and South. You get people from all over the state. There's teams from Springfield, Kansas City, Columbia, Northwest, Northeast, South, like I said, Southeast, everywhere. There's people from all over the state come over here to Festus. And it's a big time meet. And so, if you're performing well at Festus, it bodes well for what you can do later in the season. I'm going to try to run through this a little bit. There's, a lot of kids on here that performed well. I didn't write them all down ahead of time in a nice, neat manner like I did before. So this might get a little over the place. But in the 100 boys, Brayon Clemens, 11-14, really, really good number there for Clemens. He's running well. Dylan Newman for Notre Dame says it's a personal best for him. He went 11-18 in the 100. That Notre Dame boys 4x1 looks really, really strong, and like a group that might be heading back to state this next year. On the girls' side, when it comes to sprinting in Southeast Missouri, there's nobody better than Taraji Riley. Riley, now a sophomore this year, ran 12:03. I think she ran 12 flat at Notre Dame. So she's right there, right at 12. I like to see her start kind of dipping there into the 11s, see her keep getting stronger. But really, really good runner, and a great start to the season for her. It's kind of another one I'm looking at Cape to maybe make some noise, maybe get on a podium when we get to May. In the 200, I mentioned Beckley Getz a minute ago. Here she got 4th at Festus, ran 26:37, another PR. So like I said, she's running really, really well. And a girl who's kind of jumped out to me this year. And finally, you got to see Barrett Reagan run his first 200 of the season. I'm really high. I've talked about it a lot last year as them as a group. Last year was Blaine and Barrett running for the Indians. Now Brock out here on the track. Brock ran a 200 today, had a PR, 23:88. Just a group of really, really good kids that, worked their tail off. And for Barrett, it was a big year for him. He's been solid. He's a kid who made me turn my head when he showed up in high school as a freshman, going sub 50. And since then, just been building and building. And like I mentioned, I think on the last episode, Blaine kind of took the world by storm last year, ran 47 low, won a state championship. But right now, man, Barrett is looking very strong. The work he's put in the offseason is definitely showing up. The numbers are there. Physical changes are there. The kid looks completely different. He looks a lot stronger. Looks like he's ready to compete at a really high level, I think, this year in any discipline that he wants to, because right now he is top 3 in the state in the 100, the 200, and the 400. He ran 21:36 to win at Festus. A huge PR for him right now. His stats this season, very strong. 10.62. I think that's second or third in state. In the 100, he's, I believe he's first in the 400 right now with that 47.9, and then second in the 200 at 21:36. 21:36, that'll put you on the podium. That'll put you top 8 at the state meet this year. It should, at least. So, unbelievable start. This is early. We're not even in April yet, or these meets aren't in April yet. So, he's a kid I'm really, really excited about, what the future is going to look like for him, and I think it's going to be very, very, very bright. I know he's committed to SEMO. I mentioned it before, but I think he's going to be a beast this season, and then once he steps onto college track as well. Also, shout out to Hudson Dennis. Hudson Dennis ran 22:57. He's outside of the scoring range, but a really good PR for him. He's a kid who's a freak athlete, too. He didn't play basketball this year. He would have been the starting center at Notre Dame if he played basketball. He's one of the best players on the team. The best swimmer we have in Southeast Missouri, an absolute monster at that. Probably going to be doing that at the next level one day. So, kid is a unbelievable athlete. So shout out to him. He's going to be a big part of those Notre Dame, sprint teams, things like that. Could make some hay when they get to the postseason. And then speaking of Reagan family, Blaine Reagan ran his first race of the year. Kind of the plan, gear up. He played football, played basketball. Now they're kind of ramping him up here to run track this season. He ran in 400, his first race all year. I mean, for him, I don't know. I wasn't there, and no, I haven't talked to anybody about it, so I can't confirm one way or the other. But Blaine Reagan, very smooth, 49.01. I mean, it's like getting out of bed and brushing your teeth, I think, for Blaine Reagan to go to run 49 in the 400. I don't know what his thoughts are. I mean, I'm sure he won. He got first in 49.01. Obviously, I mean, his PR was down at right after school ended. He went Great Southwest meet, kind of like an AAU track meet. He ran 46.96 there. Obviously, he's trying to gear up, get down to that 47 low. I'm sure he'd love to get back to, 46 high, something like that. But it's all a build, when you're at that level of track and field. And this is a kid who, like I said, he just got done playing football at a very high level, got done playing basketball at a very high level, starter on both things. So I'm very excited to see him just back out there. Obviously, it's first meet, so I'm sure he's got a lot more coming up his sleeve here the rest of the season. Flipping the girls into 400. Beckley gets, again, a new PR. She went 101. I mentioned in Poplar Bluff, she went a minute even, 0.79, but basically a minute flat there to get third here at Festus. So, I mean, the winner there went 58.1, which is their PR. So, it's going to be tough to punch your ticket to the state meet in Class 5 in the 400 for girls, but I mean, Beckley is on the right track. She keeps dropping that number each week, so very excited to see, I mentioned a minute ago, what she can do as the year progresses. 800 meters on the girls' side. Emma Niebalski got 7th, 2:27 for her decent run. For Emma, boys' side, this was Kenyon Kelpie out of Jackson. He was kind of the leader in the clubhouse, 2:01. Where you want to be, you want to keep, you want to be around that 2-minute number and keep working your way down. Some of the best in the state. I mean, Jackson Miller, a kid from SLU, ran 1:53, but also Elijah Cheek, good run for him, 2:03 in the 8. So good start to the year for those guys. Like I said, you want to be hovering around that 2-minute mark in this area to compete and try to push a little bit lower if you want to make some hay when you get to the postseason around here. 1600, excuse me. Very, very competitive field. A lot of kids from Kansas City, St. Louis put up big numbers there. Carter Sander, the leader out of this area, 4:37 on the boys' side. Over on the girls' side, though, similar situation. Girls pushed pretty much far down the list, but a PR for Jolyn Zhang, 5:44.41. Amelia Peters from Notre Dame, also a PR. Only a freshman. Notre Dame just keeps rolling out freshmen that are absolute monsters, long-distance runners. Peters ran 5:37, so shout out to them, man. That's great showing, especially when you're that young, getting out there competing against some of the very, very best in the state. Like I keep mentioning, I can't mention it enough. This meet over at Fest is very, very competitive. And then a girl with a lot more experience, Lily Coy, led the way in the 3,200 around here. She ran 11:37, which is a PR for her. Emma Niebalski a little bit behind, 11:50, which also a PR for her. Over on the boys' side, Aiden Niebalski kind of jumped out to me, 9:38.95, leading the group here. In the, after that, hurdles. Kid I'm really excited about, sophomore for Cape Central in the 110 hurdles, Demarion Williams, having a really strong start to the season. He ran 15:53. It's a PR for him, another PR. He keeps dropping that number every meet. Nishan Davis got out here for Saxon. He ran well, 15:63. So both those guys going to be competitive, but everybody in Southeast Missouri in the 110 is going to be looking up at a kid named Patrick Slack, if you're not familiar, kid from Poplar Bluff. Kid's unbelievable. He's the best in the state in the 100 under 110 hurdles. So once you get to SEMO conference, things like that, life is going to be pretty difficult, but that kid's a beast. So, coming in second or third behind him is never something to be embarrassed about. That is for sure, because that kid's going to be running into college level one day. In 300 hurdles, girls side, Grayson Maurer, 50-52. Decent run there for Grayson. She's another kid who does a little bit of everything for the Bulldogs. But on the boys' side, speaking of Bulldogs, Trenton Powell got first, 40.18 seconds. Great job by him. Gage Parker Jackson ran 42.20. Powell is the guy who can compete a little bit with slack, but today he just ran the 300 hurdles. So shout out to him. He's a guy who can be competitive. And then let's jump over to shot put. Boys side, Jamie Adams, I mentioned, keeps pushing further and further. He threw 48, but in this one, a big throw for local kids by Gavin Shin, man. Gavin Shin, 51 feet up there at Festus. Insane throw. I think his best of the season here is obviously early, but really, really good start to the year for him. Looking at discus on the girls' side, Layla Bergfield, really good throw, 116 feet, her PR, and then right behind her, Kat Ellefson, who's doing a little bit of everything this year for the Indians in throws, just behind her at 116 as well. On the boys' side is Bryson Wessel, the leader for Southeast Missouri throwers. He had throw 160 feet, 7 inches, come in second overall. Adams from Cape, I mentioned, he threw 144.10. Oh, this kid's going to be the real deal, I think, in the throws. So shout out to Jamie Adams. In the javelin, get to talk about Saxony. Clark Jones led the way here in Cape County. He threw 148.8, which is his PR. So shout out to Clark. And then on the girls' side, Kat Ellefson comes up. It has her in second at 40.31 meters. The leader was at 40.32 meters. Tough break there, coming in second, but good throw. And then Jayla Smith, coming off basketball season for the Indians, she throws 35.4 meters. So, like I said, good meet, very, very competitive meet. If you are, making noise in this meet, you are going to be somebody who has a chance to stand out when we get to the end of the season. Another one I mentioned earlier, Amelia Fox jumped 11 in Poplar Bluff. Now she jumps 11.6 and a quarter, just still off of her PR that she set in the postseason last year. But really, really good jump. Therefore, Amelia, she's somebody I keep saying I expect to see her make a push in the postseason. In the long jump, we had Brooklyn Williams came in second, 17 feet, 2 inches. And then Taraji Riley came in third right behind her. And then in the triple jump, Claire Fouch PR'd with jump of 35 feet, 10 3/4 to get second in the triple jump. Grayson Maurer, a quarter of an inch behind her, coming in third place. So really, really good jumping over there on the girls' side. We have a ton of really, really high-level athletes in track and field, and both boys and girls. But when it comes to jumping, vaulting, things like that, the girls in this area are pretty dominant. But when it comes to boys in the vaults, there's one that stands above the rest. That is Kent Sheridan. He got first. Once again, another kid who's he jumped 14 feet 11 3/4. It's a great vault. But, still well behind his PR. He's a kid who's going to be pushing for a gold medal, in my opinion, this year in the pole vault. And I'll be rooting for him all the way. I think he's going to get there. I think he's going to get it this year. At least I'm hoping he is. But I'm excited to see what he is able to accomplish as the season goes on. So now we can wrap up track and field. I'm sorry if I talk too much about track and field. I love track and field. I get fired up about track and field. So I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but when we got some meets around here, I implore you to go check it out. We got some kids who are the real deal. So it's always very, very fun for me to watch. Boys golf, I don't have everybody's numbers for this. The only team I saw post anything was Jackson. That is over at the Notre Dame Invitational, kind of what I'm alluding to. All of our local teams were there, and I mentioned Jackson. They had it online. They placed second as a team. They put it on Facebook. So basically, if your team doesn't post something on a social media site that I follow them on, I might not talk about it. So if I'm not talking about your team, send me stuff individually. Let me know. Hit me up. and Exit 99 Sports. You can reach me there or personally, Caleb DeLoach. Look me up anywhere. Jackson got second as a team there at Notre Dame this past week. They had 4 individual medalists. Caden Shaw and Jackson Miller actually tied for 5th at 77. Jimmy Williams shot a 78 for 6th, and then Sam Crowley shot an 83 to finish 15th. So the Indians playing well here early. Pretty strong team. Shaw is committed to play at the next level. Jimmy Williams, I think, won the SEMO conference last year individually. So the Indians bring back some strong kids. I'm expecting them to perform well. Looking at boys tennis, Notre Dame took on Cape Central. Notre Dame won 6-3. They won the doubles 2-1. Won singles 4-2. Owen Blattle, Michael Bogdanovich playing well. Both kids that their coach in the article, there was an article written about it on SEMA Ball. Both of those kids, their coach expect to maybe make a state run, at least make it 2 states. So excited to see what they can do. Notre Dame obviously always has a strong team. Oh no, and I can't remember last name. Alston, kid from last year. He graduated, so he was a kid who went to state multiple times. So a couple new kids. Blattle, Bogdanovich trying to fill shoes there in the number 1 spot. For Jackson, they took on North County as a team, beat them 8-1, and they played, I think, at Sykeston, won that 9-0 this past week as well. And then the very next day, swept Eureka 9-0. Also, Cape Central got back in action. They swept Festus 9-0, and then the next day they took on Sykeston, beat them 9-0. So our Cape County boys tennis teams really dominant here to start the year. So shout out to them. And Jackson went to Dexter to play in the Courts for Cancer event they host. Jackson defeated both Dexter and Sykeston again, and then they tied 3-3 with Poplar Bluff. So even number of team matchups led to a 3-3 tie. A couple scores I have, both for Saxony and boys volleyball this past week. The Crusaders played Freeburg a couple times. Freeburg from Illinois beat them 2-0 and then beat them 3-2. So, shout out to Saxony. Good start to the year. We will be getting a Saxony-Notre Dame matchup soon, though, so be on the lookout for that. But this upcoming week, got a lot of action in all sports. Very, very, very busy week. I'll try to get through this quickly here, but, I say it all the time. Part of the reason I do this is to keep you guys informed and say, hey, if you haven't, go check it out. Go watch some baseball. Go watch some soccer, whatever it is. These kids work hard. The coaches work hard, put in a lot of time and effort. So go out there, go check them out. Starting early, by the time you're watching this, it might already be over with, but we've got 3 games Monday, Jackson at Dexter, Notre Dame against Festus, and Cape against Kennett. Both the Cape and Notre Dame games here at home. On Tuesday, Saxony goes down to East Prairie, play against the Eagles, I believe. And then Cape goes on the road north to North County, Tuesday the 31st as well. Then we get into April. Wednesday, April 1st, Jackson will be hosting Farmington. Should be a good game. Notre Dame will be hosting Gateway Legacy. Don't know anything about Gateway's baseball team. And then Cape makes the short drive down the interstate to play at Kelly. And then the very next day, Jackson makes the drive down to play at Kelly. Then this upcoming weekend, Saturday the 4th, Jackson will be in action. They have a couple games, both at home. They'll be taking on Edwardsville, Illinois, 10 a.m. So wake up early, get there bright and early. Bring your coffee. Go to Jackson Donuts. Get down there to Herzog. Go watch the Indians. 10 a.m. against Edwardsville. Edwardsville is a really good team. I mean, this is a team that I believe they won state a few times the last handful of years. So, I mean, this is one of the very, very best teams in the state of Illinois traditionally. So check that game out. And then at 3 p.m. is what it's scheduled for their next ball game. They're taking on Eureka. So it's going to be 2 very tough games for Jackson. I mentioned they have started undefeated, but they're going to be challenging themselves this week. They got a lot of ball games, and they take on a couple of big dogs here this next weekend. In girls soccer, not a super busy slate, but we do get some local action, and that is Saxony on Tuesday will be heading to Jackson to take on the Indians. I would favor the Indians in this local matchup. Jackson just a little bit more traditionally than Saxony does. Saxony did have a good run there where they were pretty competitive, can beat Notre Dame's and the Jackson of the world, but right now I think Jackson's got a little bit more. But Jackson is a young team, so anything can happen. But Saxony at Jackson on Tuesday. Notre Dame, also on Tuesday, they'll be hosting Sikeston, which once again I think should be a winnable game for Notre Dame. Cape, that same evening, is on the road at Windsor, home of the Owls. Fun mascot. Ugly colors, yellow and brown. So they'll be taking on Windsor. I think Windsor's 2-1 on the season right now, last I checked. Then Wednesday, Notre Dame is on the road. They go across the river over to Marion. Tough ball game. Long road trip as well. So Notre Dame trying to get a couple of victories here this week. Started the season 0-2, but like I said, they got the firepower. Come back and play well, especially against local squads. In boys golf, early in the week, Saxony is taking on Poplar Bluff. Jackson and Notre Dame will be going to Sikeston for a quad match. And then Tuesday, Jackson is hosting a quad with Notre Dame and Cape as well. So kind of the one sport I've never watched, by the way. I've never made it out to a golf match. Usually play early, and during the middle of the week, which makes it difficult since I have a job, a real job. And then you got Wednesday, at least on the way. I don't know what's happening. Look, it's on Wednesday. It says Saxony is hosting Notre Dame and Cape, and then Thursday it says Saxony is playing in the Cape Quad. We gotta do independent research on what's actually happening. Cape Central's schedule says they're going to be in the Jackson Quad on the 31st. It says the first Saxony match at Bent Creek, and on the second it says Cape Quad at Cape Country Club. That's what it says on Cape's End. So do with that information what you will. So it looks like a busy week here for the Tigers, Saxony, Notre Dame, Jackson, everybody here in Cape County. So definitely something to look forward to. Then in boys tennis, we got a little bit of action going on. Monday it will be Jackson and Festus, and then Notre Dame goes to Farmington. A little bit of a rivalry there. Then Tuesday, interesting, at the Cape Tri match, Cape will be hosting it. Like I said, at last check, we'll see if it's updated. Last check, Cape did not have an opponent mentioned. Okay. So yeah, 3:31. So Tuesday, Cape and Jackson will both be taking on Staley. So for the Tigers, it says they're taking on Staley at 4 p.m., which is crazy, by the way. Staley is in Kansas City. There's a long drive to come play a couple matches of tennis, but whatever you got to do. Pretty cool opportunity, though, for these local teams. And then Notre Dame is hosting Arcadia Valley on Tuesday. Then Wednesday, Jackson's hosting Oakville. And then Thursday, Jackson's hosting Poplar Bluff. So shout out to the boys tennis team over at Jackson. They're going to be getting some cardio in this week. In boys volleyball, nothing for Saxony. Saxony's off this week, at least according to last check there on the schedule. Notre Dame, however, they have a couple of road trips. Going to be a tough week for them to go to Althoff Catholic, across the bridge over in Illinois. And then they'll be taking on Oakville on Wednesday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, they're going to be on the road up in the St. Louis metro area. And then we got track and field. We got a couple somewhat local track meets here. I know Cape and Notre Dame are going over to Dexter on Tuesday the 31st in the Dexter Invite. So Dexter's hosting. You'll have Cape, Notre Dame, Crothersville, Chaffee, who has Carly Kosu, who's really competitive. I can say their girls team is really good, but one girl is really good. And then Dexter's going to be there, obviously. Poplar Bluff is going to be there, who has, Jackson has the Reagans, who are the best sprinters in the area. But then Poplar Bluff probably has the next best group. They have kids that are running, pretty consistent 10.8, 10.7, and 100. They're pretty consistently sub 50 as well in the 400, pushing 21 there in the 200. So they have some kids who are the real deal when it comes to sprinting as well. So Poplar Bluff, good team. Obviously, I mentioned Slack. The Slack kid is the best hurdler in the state of Missouri. So Thursday, Saxony will be running at a meet at Kelly. And then Saturday, Cape will be going up to Farmington for a kind of a smaller invitational up there this Saturday. up at Farmington. I believe it pretty much does it. No Jackson track meet this week. They'll be hosting a meet, but that's not until April 7th. So on the other side of Easter, that's their next opportunity to see them. They'll be hosting it, like I said, at Jackson. I think it's a Bob Sink kind of memorial type invitational deal. So obviously a great cause. Shout out to Coach Sink. He was one of the best. Great dude. A very, very good coach. He was never my coach personally, but he was around the track when I was over here running lots and lots of circles. So it is what it is. So that does it, I think, as far as what we have, what we've watched, what we got coming up this week. I do want to mention, I have it pulled up here. Some local girls basketball wrap up, boys and girls basketball wrap up with all district teams were announced, SEMO conference teams were announced, things like that. So we'll start with the SEMO conference teams. On the girls' side, pretty busy group from here in our little coverage area. I'll name everybody, but we got Jamie Dawson-Ide from Cape Central, the lone representative there from Cape. Really deserving. She's a stud. Going to be back. Going to be one of the best players again next year. Mia Panton, a senior from Notre Dame, all conference as well. And then Kinsey Keys, all three of those teams getting one representative. Kinsey Keys, lone standout from Saxony. Obviously, an unbelievable year for Keys. Kind of does it all. Kinsey's one of the best here in the area. Then you've got Kate Deck, Lauren Dory, and Addison Henderson. So the three kind of star freshman trio there for the Indians, all conference here in our local area. You've also got Mo Minley from Dexter, Tasia Carter, and Elise Edwards from Kennett, and then Peyton Wiggins from Sykeston. Also, the individual, as far as player of the year goes, is Kate Deck. Shout out to Kate. Knocked off Edwards. Not something easy to do. Edwards was the leading scorer in the SEMO conference. Put up 682 points this year. Unbelievable. Lauren Dory, by the way, the leader in free throw percentage. Shot 90%. Crazy number. Shout out to her. And then Coach Fulton was the coach of the year. Her team won every game by 1,000. And then you've got, on the boys' side, all-conference team, Goliath Morris Young from Cape Central, the load representative for the Tigers. Had a great year. Tough year for the Tigers, but he played really well, pretty consistently. You got Cole Adams from Notre Dame, only a sophomore, going to be one of the best players in the area next year. And then from Jackson, you got two players, John Ernst, sophomore, and then the senior Will Thomas. So shout out to those guys. Outside of them, Trinez Lane from Charleston, John Sepulvedo from Dexter, Jaden Williams from New Madrid, also a sophomore, Dallas Williams from Bluff, and then Kobe Thomas, Marquel Murray from Sykeston. Kobe Thomas was the player of the year and the leading scorer and the leader in free throw percentage, and his coach, Greg Hollifield, was the coach of the year. Shout out to them. When it comes to all district teams, Class 4 boys, Cole Adams and Braden Robert were all district, very deserving. I mean, those kids put up awesome numbers in their district tournament, but all season long. Sorry, something just like broke over there. Cole Adams, kind of the leader in the clubhouse, but Robert really came on strong down the stretch, played a big part in what the Bulldogs did. And then Class 5 on the girls' side, you had Jamie Dawson-Ide, who was all conference, along with Mia Panton, who was also all conference. Both of them made Class 5 all district. And then similarly on the boys' side for the Tigers, Goliath Morris Young was all district in Class 5. And then in Class 6, also the same boys who were represented for the Indians on the all-conference team, Ernst and Will Thomas are both all district for the Indians as well. And also very similar to the conference teams. For Jackson girls, Class 6, all district, District 1. Kate Deck, Addison Henderson, and Lauren Dory were all district. Kate Deck was co-player of the year with Lauren Ortworth, the big senior center from Corhay Zoo. And then Coach Fulton, shout out to Coach Fulton, coach of the year in the district as well. And then finally, had one all-stater here from Cape County. I guess I'll also mention they put out their NBCA put out their final poll. Jackson girls fourth, finished fourth in state there in the final poll of the season. But we did have one All-State honoree. It was Kate Deck of Jackson for Class 6. I mean, shout out to her. Great year. Only a sophomore. I mentioned it. Posted a little tweet about it, but talk about it more. I mean, she has a lot of expectations. She has to carry the weight of having the last names of her brother. Deck Cole was an All-Stater for 2 years. He was arguably he's one of the very best players in Southeast Missouri for the last couple years as well. So, I mean, coming in very, very high expectations just because of who she is. And then, to have things kind of put on you all season long, be the face of the team, be the person that teams are face guarding full court. Teams are playing whatever, like denying you 94 feet. So, she comes in with her teammates, all conference, all district, but then she's the lone All-Stater, co-player of the year in the district, conference player of the year. Awesome accomplishment for her. Only a sophomore. I mean, all those girls I mentioned are only sophomores for Jackson. What their future can be is unlimited. So we're several months away from getting back to basketball, but I'm always down to talk basketball, and that girls team is one of the most fun, one of my favorite in the entire area to cover. So shout out to them. Shout out to everybody making the Kate who made All-State, all the all-conference people we had from here, all the all-district players we had as well. So really, really good accomplishments. Shout out to them. So that about does it for me. I'll wrap it up here. As always, like, subscribe, things like that. Tell your friends. Anybody who's got kids I'm going to talk about, teams I'm going to talk about. If you know the coaches and I'm not talking about your team enough, or I don't talk about stats, things like that, hit me up. I'm always open. I might start reaching out maybe to some more people to acquire stats for different teams that I don't get to talk enough about, but hit me up. Like I said, slide in the DMs, Caleb Deloach or Exit 99 Sports on any social media where you can find me. If you want to listen, watch the show, you can do it anywhere you listen to podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Amazon, and then you can watch. I post the video on Facebook, post videos on YouTube as well. And then, I've alluded to it a few times, might be doing some live streaming stuff. We'll see as we get into the summer. I have a lot of good interviews, things like that planned to fill space in the summertime when we don't have a lot to talk about. But until then, I'll be covering each week all the games and things like that, and then I'll be sneaking in a few interviews with different coaches and things like that as well here coming soon. So once again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. I appreciate everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Take it easy.